After a turbulent year of protests and COVID lockdowns, America's children are heading back to school, and there could be new lessons to learn. President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan authorized $122 billion to the Department of Education for state education agencies. 90% of that money will go to local school districts, which in turn must reserve at least 20% to address the learning lost during the last school year. The administration asks they do that by using evidence-based programs like summer learning and after-school activities. But that's not all. Inside the Department of Ed's COVID-19 handbook called Roadmap to Reopening Safely and Meeting All Students' Needs, the department recommends schools use some of the money towards race and social emotional learning. The manual offers a direct link to a group called the Abolitionist Teaching Network, who will help schools transform.
Abolitionist Teacher Network, a network that is dedicated to not creating new schools or reimagining schools, but destroying schools that do nothing but harm Black and brown children.
Dr. Bettina Love, an author and activist, created the Abolitionist Teaching Network in 2020 to develop and support educators to fight injustice within their schools and communities.
If you don't realize white supremacy is in everything we do, then we got a problem.
Love wants white teachers to undergo anti-racist therapy to stop them from what she calls spirit murdering Black and brown students.
So one of the things that I bring to this work is a significant history of trying to trouble my own racial identity and trying to help other white teachers trouble their internalized white supremacy and anti-Blackness.
We also found the group hired paid activists across the country whose job they say is going into schools to dismantle oppressive structures by mapping, canvassing, building groups and coalitions, creating media and propaganda.
Education cannot save us. We must save education.
I want us to be feared.
For example, if teachers find school uniforms to be oppressive, ATN would send in their activists to help abolish them.
You call us, we will fund an activist in residence, and he or she or they will find out how. They'll do the research, they'll do all the organizing, teachers and parents show up, and we dismantle. And we hope to have hundreds of them around the country doing this work.
Love has a history of making controversial statements on Twitter, like this tweet from 2020, in which she writes, "Mediocre, greedy, rich white men are killing us." It's unclear how the Department of Ed chose ATN as the resource for race and social emotional learning. Although Biden's Deputy Education Secretary, Cindy Martin, is an advocate of Bettina Love. Last fall, while she was still superintendent at San Diego schools, Martin invited Love to train teachers to stop spirit murdering Black students.
And what's interesting is that there is a legal disclaimer from the Department of Ed that says any resources or links they do offer, quote, do not necessarily reflect the positions or policies of the department. We did reach out to the department and ATN, but have not heard back from either. Steve?
All right. Aisha, thank you very much. Very interesting stuff. Joining us right now, first time we've had somebody in studio on the couch with us in over a year, Lawrence Jones. Lawrence, good morning.
Thanks, guys. I know that's a lot for you guys to process. Our investigative team has been working on this for weeks.
It's
very
fascinating
detailed.
Because everybody wants to reopen the schools. And so the government has put out this handbook on how to do it. But then tucked away, it says to help with race and emotional learning, they just mentioned this one group, the Abolitionist Teaching Network, which it sounds like has a connection to the Deputy Secretary of Education.
That's exactly right. And ATN, you know, this is not a conversation about reform. The big question parents that are at home that are watching this package should ask themselves, are they okay with reforms, or do they want to be just like this group that want to burn down the system?
And they said that specifically.
They said that very specifically in the video. These are brilliant people. They know exactly what they're doing. And the big question as well, Brian, should activists be in the classroom? Ms. Love had another statement that I want to play for you guys that our team grabbed. And this just shows you the picture, the big picture, which is to destroy the system from within. Let's take a look.
I've been teaching now for 19 years, and I've been doing this work of completely disrupting systems in elementary schools and in school systems for those 19 years, making sure that we're teaching SEL through a model of equity.
It's important for a network like this to be diligent and explicit about that fight against white supremacy.
So a lot of people have been talking about CRT, a lot of these progressive policies that are now embedded within schools and in the culture. And this is why I say it's hard to get rid of it, because it's already there. They've been teaching it for a while. As she says, I've been teaching for 19 years and I've been putting this stuff out. These are activist teachers that have a doctrine that they believe in that they're now promoting to other teachers.
While in denial. When you ask or watch other networks, they say CRT doesn't exist. It's made up by Republicans looking to find something to run against for political reasons. When they push on this curriculum, they say, we didn't tell you to click on that hyperlink. We didn't tell you that's part of it. That's a choice.
Well, what I would say is not just CRT. It's a progressive worldview. It's a Marxist worldview. It's a belief that America cannot be reformed. You can't fix some of the issues that we may have, that you got to burn the system down. And that's what they truly believe. And so another thing I'll say about this is that you see a conversation here, just like with Black Lives Matters, where people have legitimate grievances and they want to come to the table and talk about those issues. But the organization itself is very flawed. We see this in Cuba right now. The Cuban people who stood with Black Lives Matter, they said, why aren't you standing with us? We thought that you wanted justice for Black people. We are Afro-Cubans. And you know what they say? Well, it's really not communism there. Socialism has been good for you. And so you see this infighting. People believe in this stuff, but they really don't know what the people stand for, and that's where the chaos is.
Lawrence, my question is, this is the Department of Education with a recommendation for opening up our schools, talking about COVID, and then if you scroll through the email that I guess was sent out to 74,000 school districts, you scroll down to page 9, and then there's this section with that hyperlink, and you click on it, and it's to this organization. What does that have to do with reopening our schools?
It doesn't, but they use race as a guide, and as Aisha correctly pointed out, they put it at the bottom of the page. But look, this doesn't necessarily reflect our viewpoint.
So why are you putting it in there?
But why do you put? And that's the only link that gives them some sort of guidance. Like I said, guys, we can't run from this at this point. There's staffers, there's teachers, there's people that are in academia, thought leaders that are everywhere now putting this in the schools, and it's just not a matter of banning it. The question is, what do parents do back at home? Right. They need to look at what their kids are reading, and you got to beat them to the punch. Have these conversations at home.
You got to beat your school to the
punch.
punch.
Exactly
well,
right.
The problem is you don't know. You send your kids to school and you trust that the teacher's going to be teaching them something you agree with.
That's exactly right, and they're not. You cannot just put the burden on the teachers. Right. And so the audience, they're probably freaking out right now because they've heard about this and they're wondering if their kids. They can email us at friends@Fox News, and if they have syllabuses, examples, bring it to us. Our research will pick it apart and see if this is a part of that network.
Lawrence, don't you think, given now that this has been revealed just now for the first time, that parents need to ask the school districts, hey, are you consulting with this abolitionist teaching network for social justice?
They need to ask the schools, but they need to also ask the teachers, because as you see, this teacher said that I've been doing this for 19 years. So it's not a matter. You think we heard about CRT 19 years ago? Exactly. So these are people that are already there. They recruit these teachers. They teach them this philosophy. And again, I continue to say reforms need to happen. But it's interesting enough, this group is anti-teachers, anti-school choice, but they're pro-teachers union. And so this is
the students who want to get an A, and the teachers want to keep their job.
Yep.
So do they have to go along with this in order to keep their job, and they have to go along with this in order to get an A? And that's where they're going to need some help from the outside to help with the curriculum.
Well, it's not just that, it's the kids as well. And as I reported on in Loudoun County, the kids aren't turning on the teachers. They're turning on their parents. The burden of proof is the parents now. The parents have to prove that this is wrong now. So that just shows you.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you, Lawrence. Excellent job.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's just the beginning.
We'll continue to do this all morning.
And we haven't heard from the Department of Education. Have they
After multiple times reaching out to them over a period of weeks.
Ever since day one, it has aligned itself with radical groups. It has pushed critical race theory. And what I believe is happening is that Democrats are realizing that this is a losing issue for them. And there are many lawyers in Washington. In fact, most of the leaders, or at least about 40% of Congress, they're lawyers. They should know that critical race theory is racism. It runs counter to our civil rights laws, the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, and how we treat each other as Americans.
Right.
In America, we do not bully and shame people because of the color of their skin. White people are protected by civil rights laws just like any other race.
Well, and we were talking, Dr. Swain, yesterday about this particular group with Lawrence Jones, and he's looked into it, and it looks like this group has been pushing for CRT and social justice and things like that. And while the Department of Education may say it was a big mistake, didn't mean to do that, how many school districts have already reached out to him and said, hey, help us reopen in September? Because we do know that apparently the deputy Secretary of Education has worked with this group in the past. So when they say it was a big mistake, you got to figure at least she knew.
I mean, of course they knew. They got caught, and I applaud Fox News for covering critical race theory as closely as you have, and that you are educating Democrats as well as Republicans. You're educating the American people, and schools need to reopen. The people who are hurt most by schools being closed are the poor, racial and ethnic minorities, the groups that Democrats purport to care about. They don't care about our children, and they don't care about our rights as Americans. And right now, they own critical race theory. They own the racism. They need to denounce it. President Biden, the Department of Education, they need to backtrack, and they need to stand for the rights of all Americans.
You have said that Democrats' agenda is hurting black people as well as white people because it hurts America. Dr. Swain, thanks for being on with us. Emotions running very high and hot at another school board meeting in Loudoun County last night. Parents calling out the school's social justice agenda as one teacher declares she has had enough.
Within the last year, I was told in one of my so-called equity trainings that white, Christian, able-bodied females currently have the power in our schools, and that, quote, this has to change. You shut the doors to the public, as well as the emails sent by the superintendent last year reminding me that a dissenting opinion is not allowed, even to be spoken in my personal life, going so far as to send a form to my colleagues and I encouraging us to fill it out. I quit your policies, I quit your trainings, and I quit being a cog in a machine that tells me to push highly politicized agendas on our most vulnerable constituents, the children.
These schools.
Author Douglas
Despite the board's attempt to deny it, District 196 schools are quickly becoming a place where promoting activism is actually more important than promoting education. I'll take you back to my first day at RHS this fall. The principal came out and gave us a heartfelt speech about equality and standing together. He began to list countless races, such as Latino, Asian, expressing how much they matter and how important they are. But never once did he mention a race or identity that reflects me, or half the kids that were in the class. Now, members of the board, I know you haven't been to school in a while, and I know none of you or most of you don't have any kids left in the school district. But you must admit how uncomfortable it will be to be characterized just by your skin color on the first day of school and be thought that you were wrong just because of your skin color. So I will never forget the look one of my friends gave me from across the room as we were sitting there listening to this blatant bias being expressed in the so-called equity statement by the leader of our school. To be clear, I don't need you to tell me that I matter, but hearing the condolences given to other races and leaving just one race out, inevitably you'll start to feel like you've done something wrong. And in our principal's attempt to unify us, he instead created unwarranted boundaries and barriers between his students, pitting us against each other based on characteristics that we can't control. In another separate instance, I was told that writing "All Lives Matter" on the whiteboard was political and could be seen as offensive. When I questioned the teacher after class, she told me that she didn't have an answer and she just had to erase it, and it was quickly erased. There are political signs all over RHS about specific races that matter, specific sexual orientations that matter, and specific perspectives that matter. But when I questioned the RHS administration about how these signs were political, they told me that they were supporting human rights. So when I questioned why the equity statement couldn't represent all students, they told me that to even ask that question was outlandish and offensive. And when I asked why that was, they told me, quote, whites have a pretty good situation right now, unquote. So is that not racism? Disregarding my question merely because of the color of my skin? To be honest, after enduring a year of the people in charge telling me that I'm a racist and I'm privileged and pointing out our irreversible differences, I've never noticed race more. And it's becoming the first thing I notice when I meet someone, which has never before been the case. RHS administration confidently told me that RHS students and staff are happy with their equity statement, but from my experience in talking with other students, this is not the case. I know many kids who disagree with their teachers, but they're too scared to stand up because they're worried that their grades will be docked and their learning experience will be affected. My honors government teacher, I'm not going to say his name, but he's mentioned that Democrats care more about all people while Republicans only care about themselves. And he's also inferred to us that socialism is better than democracy. He even had a statue. He had a statue of a socialist leader in his classroom. I've been told by a lot of kids that they just stay silent and adjust their schoolwork to reflect an acceptable opinion to secure a good grade. I've been approached by multiple teachers who have told me in private that they just want to say that they agree with me and they support me standing up, but they can't say it in front of the class for fear of being disciplined by the administration in some way or losing their jobs. There is clearly only one way to think in this district, and that is that they are teaching their kids to shut up if they don't agree. Now, members of the board, I want you to take a good look at yourselves in the mirror tonight and ask, are you really standing up for the equality of all people, or are you just pushing a damaging political ideology on our students? A fellow coworker at my job, who, by the way, is of color, discreetly told me that the school seemed to be pushing a very leftist agenda in class. This proved that not everyone is happy with your school, and not everyone who isn't happy is white.
Against a curriculum that teaches their kids to hate their country and to judge their classmates based on how they look, on their skin color. Several parents had the courage to say this publicly a few days ago at a school board meeting. Watch.
CRT is not an honest dialogue. It is a tactic that was used by Hitler and the Ku Klux Klan on slavery very many years ago to dumb down my ancestors so we could not think for ourselves. CRT is racist. It is abusive. It discriminates against one's color. Let me educate you. An honest dialogue does not oppress. An honest dialogue does not implement hatred or injustice. It's to communicate without deceiving people. Today, we don't need your agreement. We want action and a backbone for what we asked for today, to ban CRT. I had to come down here today to tell you to your face that we are coming together and we are strong. This will not be the last. Greet and meet respectfully.
Wow. The first time we saw that video, our instant response was, that woman, her name is Chantel Cooper, deserves an award. She's a mother. She's a member of the group Parents Against Critical Theory. And we're very pleased to have her on the show tonight. Chantel Cooper, thank you very much for coming on. What made you do this? And so many parents have not done this. You stood up there and did this on camera. Why?
Well, it contradicts everything that Martin Luther King fought for. It's hatred, Marxist ideology, and it places the child in a loophole of oppression, making them feel as a victim. I can't stand for that.
Amazing. Amazing. So describe the kinds of things that you're fighting against. So the school is teaching children to judge one another on the basis of appearance, of skin color. Is that right?
Yes. Well, it's our job as parents to raise our children, not the school board. One example I can give you was the school was replacing the morning announcement with news. The second, children reached out to find out how they could help and join a club to see if they could, relate with one another, undivided. And they were denied by the color of their skin for the Equity Ambassador Club.
Well, how is that different from darker periods we consider evil in American history? That sounds very similar.
Well, plain example. You cannot further brotherhood of a man by encouraging class hatred. Our Constitution is what unites us, not the color of our skin.
Yes.
So America, it's just time for us to stand up for one another. This is the last free country.
What was the response when you did this? When you spoke so publicly about what your school was teaching?
Well, it's been positive. I never knew that there were so many parents that felt the way I did. I love people. So for anyone to go against, good, but be okay with evil, you can't fix a bad reaction with another bad action. It just doesn't make sense.
That's right. That's exactly right. Chantel Cooper, I'm so glad that you came on the show tonight, and what a voice you are. I hope people will emulate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.
The people in the colleges, students, and definitely the professors, they have this neo-Marxist type of indoctrination going on because they're very open. What they sell into the young people is just this utopia, this idea that everything is going to be fine if you just hand out the power to a single person. I went through the college system here in the United States, and it's just obvious that that's what's happening.
I'm Addison Smith with Campus Reform. We're here in Washington, D.C. today. Cuba is revolting against their communist government. Cubans have had enough. But do students know that that's why they're revolting? Have they heard what the media has been trying to convince them of? We're going to find that out. Stay tuned. In Cuba right now, we're seeing the people of Cuba revolt, the first of its kind that we've seen in several decades. Do you know what Cubans are protesting?
I actually have not kept up with the Cuba crisis right now.
No.
I do not know. Do you?
Something about communism. I actually don't know.
Isn't it like they're just unhappy with their government, basically, right?
Yeah, it's issues with like food and water resources and just general mistreatment by their government.
Not a ton about it. I know they're protesting for rights, something like that, yeah.
I am honestly unsure of like what's really going on.
They're protesting oppressive government. They don't have access to basic necessities like, food, water, money, things like that. How do you think Cuba got to that point?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know.
I don't know either.
I don't know, I would say like probably related to the government not providing.
The restrictions and all that the government's putting on Cuba just keeps getting tighter and tighter, and the people keep getting poorer and poorer and poorer.
Do you think it could have something to do with the fact that Cuba, for several decades now, has been a communist dictatorship?
I mean, that's definitely to blame in that situation.
I mean, the U.S. has kind of, had their eyes set on Cuba. I feel like more U.S. interest in the area is kind of dictating the well-being of the people, less, the communist aspect.
Yeah, I know that like, at least with like communism, the ideal communism and like the way it's supposed to be isn't necessarily the way it is.
Yeah, because eventually people realize that, I'm not saying that America's perfect, but I think a democratic process is more fair.
Probably, yes.
Probably a bunch of things. That probably has something to do with it.
Oh, definitely, probably. I don't know a lot about it, but I'm sure everything is contributing to it, yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Do you think that socialism or communism could take hold of America, or do you think it's incompatible with what America stands for?
Oh, I could only hope.
No, I think I'd be open to it.
Oh, geez, that's a deep question.
Question. Kind of an AOC fan.
So a shift towards something more along the lines of communism is something you would prefer?
I mean, yeah, I'm not like super read up as I wish. A communist, a classless, moneyless society has not yet been achieved.
Can you name a country that's implemented communism and it worked out for them?
I mean, implemented is pretty, tried to implement and then,
Usually seems to be how it goes down.
I would say China's kind of thriving right now.
You think China's doing good?
Yeah.
But what about China's citizens? They don't really have the same rights that we do.
I don't want to get into the whole Uyghur thing there, but like, I would say in general, yes, they do.
I don't think it's something that will ever take over just because there's a lot of greed in the U.S. The ideal communism and like the way it's supposed to be isn't necessarily the way it is.
What we're seeing in America among young people is this shift where they're looking at communism favorably, they're looking at socialism favorably, and they're kind of turning their back on America, saying that, this country isn't all that great.
To all those people, all I want to tell them, fly to Cuba and stay there. If you want to feel what communism, socialism, what is it? Because it's too easy to say it here. You think it's easy, you think everything's free, you think it's good, but it's really not. I'm from Cuba. I came when I was 12. And I know the difference between Cuba and United States. I love it here.
What's your message to these college students?
Listen to us, guys. Communism sounds beautiful in theory, but it can never be taken to practice. Understand that. Communism kills. They take everything. They tell you what to think, what to feel. They even control what music you listen to. Right now in Cuba, after 62 years of communism, kids are getting shot in the streets just for chanting freedom. The problem is not the lack of food or the lack of medicine, it's the lack of freedom. If we have freedom, we will have food and medicine. You can bet on that.
Since the 60s, the people in the colleges, students and definitely the professors, they have this neo-Marxist type of indoctrination going on. I went through the college system here in the United States, and it's just obvious that that's what's happening.
The American school system and the American democracy allows every student to learn of every system. But in Cuba, you can only learn of one system. It's only one type of knowledge, and that is communism. That is wrong. They have to learn about capitalism. They have to learn about democracy. The idea of capitalism is greater than communism, and I say it to all of the students.
I'm Addison Smith. Thank you so much for watching. If you missed our last video, you can watch it here. And if you want to stay up to date on all of our upcoming videos, subscribe here.
I think the Board of Education and those sitting on the panels are thieves. I think they're liars and have committed treason against our children. Stop indoctrinating our children. Stop teaching our children to hate the police. Stop teaching our children that if they don't agree with the LGBT community, that they're homophobic. You have no idea each child's life. You don't know what their family lifestyle consists of. You have children like mine who is Muslim, and I'm Christian, and everyone would think they would never believe that of her, right? Because the way she looks, or according to Miss Cyrus, she's too pasty white.
Ma'am, we're not allowed to use names. If you have something you'd like to discuss about a specific person, you can call the superintendent or leave your info for her to call you tomorrow.
Why are we not allowed to discuss names? Why am I not allowed when they purposely themselves expose themselves on social media, talking about calling for the death of a former president, or saying that any child that doesn't believe in Black Lives Matter should be canceled out? Is this what my tax dollars is paying for? You're teaching my children and other children that if they believe in God Almighty, they're part of a cult. These educators put their own names out there. We have Mr. Berry, who took it upon himself with Miss Cyrus to create a curriculum.
That should be it.
Do you want the proof? I have the proof. You created a curriculum of Black Panther indoctrination.
Ma'am.
You use taxpayers' dollars.
Can I ask you one more time? I have no issue hearing what you have to say, but
why can we not let the public speak? Why can't we let the public know that you're teaching our children to go out and murder our police officers? Do you want the proof? I have the proof. Is that what scares you, the proof? That a parent actually standing up against all of you? Is that what scares you, to call out the names of these people? You work for me. You're emotionally abusing our children and mentally abusing them. You're demoralizing them by teaching them communist values. This is still America, ma'am.
I have no problem having a peaceful discussion. This is not a peaceful discussion.
No, that's your opinion. See, here we go again. This is peaceful. To me, this is peaceful.
Well,
I'm not burning, looting, and murdering. This is peaceful.
I did not accuse you of that.
This whole cancel culture, you're silencing the children. Where are their rights? They have no rights. Because if they don't believe in the indoctrination, the demonic, twisted, sneaky, vile acts and education, if you call it that you're teaching our children, they don't agree with that. They're either homophobic, they're part of a cult, they're racist. What's racist? Who defines racist? Why? Because do you know what race I am? You're judging and dividing. You're causing segregation. Everything that we fought for, everything that I fought for years. So you have the right to stand here and tell me I'm not allowed to mention a name when the person, the Mr. Berry and Miss Cyrus themselves, you have ELA teachers giving out assignments on police murder. Police are bad? You want the proof?
Okay.
Because we have it.
So,
what policy do you have that teachers are not allowed to go on social media and indoctrinate? They took an oath, a responsibility, and they're going against everything that they stand for.
You're making general assumptions.
No, I'm not making assumptions. I'm not. I know what I'm speaking about. See, I don't agree with you, so it's an assumption.
Well, I'm not going to engage in a back and forth with you about this. So if you would like to make an appointment, I would be happy to sit with the superintendent.
I don't want to. The superintendent, the assistant superintendent already sent an email and stated that they had no idea that these books were being put in the students' hands. I have a problem when teachers are passing out flyers, recruiting children to go to the courthouse, to protest Black Lives Matters, when you have people sitting with signs that says all cops are bastards. Really? All cops are bastards? No, I think you people are, because the way you're acting and the way you're treating our children and our police officers and making them believe that it's okay to abuse them, I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and let you do that. I will become your worst nightmare, because I'm going to stand here and keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. Everyone out there heard me. Whether they agree or they don't, they're going to start looking into it. and now you're exposed. That's all. It's going to end. This indoctrination and hatred towards our police officers, this systematic racism and cancel culture is going to end. You came to the wrong school district to do this, okay? Thank you.